Yeah, we're Gophr. Our job is basically to enable businesses of all shapes and sizes to have access to great delivery and independent couriers to get access to great business, basically. So what that means is really the ambition is for us to be able to deliver for any type of industry sector across any type of service that they need, across any vehicle that's relevant for that service, up to a point, generally within last mile. And that really means trying to deliver as much flexibility across the board as possible, and we'll kind of talk through that a little bit. As we said already, we kind of want to make this into an interactive workshop, but we can't move around too much because there's a camera. But we will be asking questions, and at least have a think about it or run through it on a pilot on a page. So yeah, as I've said, we kind of take care of same-day delivery businesses same-day delivery for businesses of all shapes and sizes. So that sits within fashion, grocery, DIY, pharmacy, florists. I mean, butcher, bakers, candlestick makers. Really, we really tried to work around what your needs are to understand what solutions we need to build in order to be able to deliver against those requirements. So really, we do tend to find ourselves kind of providing services that sometimes retailers or clients can't really get elsewhere. And that means sometimes working with other sort of companies that you would think already do express delivery, but we kind of do it in a slightly different way. So for example, we've done stuff in the past for Uber, delivery for business, and so on and so forth. So it's because we kind of have a little bit more flexibility in terms of the number of vehicles that we can provide. So the question is ultimately, and hopefully, why you're here is why same day? Why bother doing it? Again, I think most of us already know that it's a growing area. It's forecasted to double over the next 4 years. And I think broadly, is seen to, or the expectation is not to just grow as its own category, but to cannibalize away from next day. So it's just important to kind of get ready for it. And, why same day now? I suppose the pace setter in the sort of elephant in the room is always kind of Amazon in terms of setting that pace. Certainly a lot of the retailers that come to us want to be able to provide a service that can get as close to prime or prime now as possible. And the reason being, everybody's always going to want stuff faster. They're not necessarily going to want it slower. Unfortunately, that's bad news for some of the logistics or supply chain managers in the room who have to deal with it. But we do what we can effectively to meet that requirement, and then try and reduce the costs as much as possible as volumes continue to grow. This is kind of one of the statements that we tend to come across a little bit when we speak to people who are in that space, the supply chain directors who are considering it but aren't quite sure if it's going to work for them. A lot of them feel like they've got enough challenges to deal with, even just with next day or with their existing carriers. Broadly, price is always the number one issue, and we'll talk about that in a little moment. But we also find, and one of the areas that we work really, really hard to resolve is, what is that doorstep experience going to be like? What can we do to kind of work with you and your brand to deliver against those expectations? The other area is kind of what can you do to change things on the fly in real time, in-flight management, and that idea of kind of communication happening on both sides, with a view to really reducing customer service issues down the line, whether it happens post-delivery or during the delivery process itself. And I'll kind of talk about some real-world examples where we've solved that problem as well. But it's what we want to get to is, and we think it'll be a useful exercise, is for you to really think about this. If the world was your oyster in terms of delivery, what would you look to try and achieve or work towards? Think about what you want and work backwards from there. So same-day delivery has got its own challenges. Again, cost is number one. I mean, for those of you who've been considering it, what is that? Is that the number one issue? I mean, is that an issue that concerns you? If it does, please raise your hands. Yeah. Then coverage in terms of areas. Yeah, because generally it tends to be very high density, sort of populated cities that it's the only area that you can, a lot of the time, deliver for. Tech stack is a massive issue. It's kind of like I've got 6 months to be able to do this integration or whatever, or my entire tech team are backed up. And then the other area we tend to find as well is kind of training in store. It's kind of how do I roll out communications to help the guys on the ground understand what they need to do from a pick and pack perspective to get ready for the courier, or for when the courier arrives, for them to know how to handle it, basically. Yeah. So, yeah, the main thing to kind of get across is, and I'm just going to talk about sort of the cost issue for now as the number one concern, is there are a lot of different models. There are more options available than you might think. So it is worth having a think about it and exploring those options as much as possible by coming to speak to us, obviously, or these guys. And the two sort of top line ones, which I think everybody is aware of, is right. The number one here, which is express delivery, is the one that everybody's been talking about, particularly since the first lockdown in 2020. Massive explosion in rapid grocery delivery solutions. Previous to that, it was hot food delivery. But it shouldn't really take away from the opportunity of being able to look at how you can stack as much work going in any specific direction as possible in order to keep your costs down on a multi-drop. And a lot of the time, you're doing your in-store, on the ground, retail staff a favor, because they can work around that if they know that they've got specific sort of delivery deadlines or pick and pack deadlines that they can work to, and the courier can go and pick up and deliver it efficiently and for a decent price. So yeah, ultimately this really, and we really want to turn this into a workshop. I don't really want to, if anybody does want to do this exercise, please put your hand up, because I can then try and turn it into more of a question and answer session. But if you could run through it, have a think about it, and see if you can answer these questions one by one yourself. And obviously you've got the pilot on a page here. For anybody who didn't get a hard copy, there's a QR code there, or come see us or go by the stand and pick one up should you be interested, and by all means have a chat. So the short version of the pilot on the page is these 4 questions, which are, if you're going to be doing same-day delivery, what problem are you actually solving for the end customer? So depending on the type of retailer you are, it could be, I need to get a gift to somebody super fast. I need to be able to deliver more in a quicker period of time. I need something for the weekend straight away. Or it's just to top up my sort of weekly grocery shopping, whatever it might be. It's really important to get to the crux of it. The next question is, what is actually going to get you internal buy-in? To get this up and running, we won't lie, there has to be, a lot of the time, some kind of investment involved. And broadly, it can be around, right, well, ultimately, I think I'll get more conversions in basket. This will be a really strong brand awareness piece. It'll be a good way to kind of defend against other competitors who might be entering the space. I'm sure you've probably got your own reasons. Where from and where to, this is really stupidly simple, but broadly, are you going to be picking up from a warehouse distribution center? Do you want to have it from a dark store? Are you looking to deliver from retail? And so on and so forth. Does it need to be nationwide? Do you just want to target specific cities? Always useful to have, I mean, we've done this many times, is focus on one specific area that you want to go after, test with that, pilot against that, see how it works, test different channels, which I'll come to in a minute, and see what it is that's actually getting some kind of traction. I mean, I don't know if you've got anything else.
Yeah, I think the where from and where to is really key, because that can change over time. Where you ship from might change based on the things that you learn when you go on the journey. How far and how fast you want to get there as well. These things can change. So your V1 of this model, this exploration, whatever you end up hopefully doing, it doesn't have to be how it ends. You learn so much about your customers, about your stores, and also about your ability as a business to be agile to this, dynamic environment. So, yeah, all of those problems will change over time, but you'll come up with new solutions.
I think that's a good example of that was with Screwfix, where by channeling all of their same day through the app, they were able to geolocate the customer, whereas through the website it was harder to actually identify the location of the customer. So then they were able to channel those and then match that customer to the store. If they were outside of the radius of the store, then they were able to not offer that same-day delivery or that rapid one-hour delivery service. So can you geolocate your customer, and a lot easier through an app than it is through a website.
Yeah, I recommend anyone in the UK, certainly, that wants to give it a go on another platform would be to try Screwfix, download the Screwfix app, give Sprint, as it's called, a go, and just see what you think, see what value it adds, how quickly it did, how quickly was it delivered, etc.
Yeah, we'll use that as a case study in a minute, so we'll go a little bit more deeply into it. Hold on, has this fallen asleep? No, okay. And then lastly, obviously, how do you tap into customer demand? So there is sometimes like this sort of assumption that, look, if we build it, like people are just going to come. And like ultimately you need to generate awareness around it. So, it's really, really important to have a very clear idea about the customer that you're going after and how you're actually going to be able to communicate to those people that this is happening. And then after that, really, it's down to us to make sure that experience is as good as it can possibly be.
And that definitely feeds into internal buy-in, because you have to have everybody within the business, particularly the marketing team, bought into this service so that they go out and appropriately communicate it out. Otherwise, you can build it, but they won't come.
Exactly. So yeah, the model that works for Screwfix, we'll go into a little bit more detail on that, and Graham, by all means, chip in. He runs point on that particular client. So yeah, what were we doing for the actual customer? Well, what problem are we solving? Time off-site, off the building site, or at the customer's house that they're sorting out the plumbing or whatever for, is wasted. So the idea was, if we can get stuff to them super fast, it stops the person, who's working on that particular house or whatever it might be, having to leave and be out for 2 hours, which can get expensive for if you're the one that's paying the bill. In terms of getting internal buy-in first for the sector.
Yep.
Do you want to?
Yeah, the idea for Screwfix was to obviously be very challenging within their own business, but also make sure that what they created could almost not be replicated by any of their competitors in that space. So they wanted to move quickly, they wanted to move hard, and they wanted to make sure that they were first in their sector. And it really came from an itch they wanted to scratch, which was, we want to get people on site within 30 minutes. And that's where the journey went from. Now, things have changed and things have developed, but it all came from an idea about moving quickly and for the right reason.
Yeah, and I think Screwfix is like fastest growing store by footprint. So it made a lot of sense for us to be able to ship directly from store to local area.
Yeah, they're a retailer that obviously value the high street store. They value their locations. They're increasing their footprint by about 10% this year alone in the UK, and that continues across Europe as well. So this model that they've built isn't just good for now, it's good for the future as well. And the more locations they have, the quicker they can reach people, the less it will cost, and the more agile they can be. Yeah.
I think one of the interesting things with Screwfix is the ROI on the investment for them, and also the subsidy on the delivery cost. They're offering out as a free service to many of their customers. Traditionally, it's also at about £5 per delivery. But when calculating the ROI there, it's not only about what is the basket size, the average order value that's actually being delivered at that point. It's also what is the opportunity cost for a Screwfix customer to take one of their team off the building site or out of you might be a weekend warrior on the DIY front and you've got the kids at home and don't want to put everyone in the car and drive to the store, or during the week, it's, you don't want to take one of your team off site, put them in the thing. They're going to drive down to the store, smoke a couple of cigarettes, buy a Snickers, look around for an hour and come back again.
Bit unfair, Patrick.
Then nobody smokes these days. Okay, vape for a bit and then come back. But that time off site is also massive ROI. So for them, it was worth the $5.
And they're the high frequency customers. It's all trade basically.
Yeah.
So they had a really good base to build on. A lot of click and collect coming in. And obviously there's that question of like are we cannibalizing click and collect? But then there's like, well, hold on a second. If we just put all of our eggs in the click and collect basket, who's going to come in and start doing the delivery piece off the back of it?
Yeah, nothing makes Screwfix happier than when they see a courier is taking an item from one of their stores to a customer who lives a lot closer to one of their competitors, who I won't say, because it shows the value that it adds. So yeah.
So this is what it looks like. This is on the website, right? At the time. And they've supported it massively. I think they run it on Sky Sports News. I don't know how many of you actually watch it, but a lot of support behind it. And broadly what that means in purple, time offsite is money wasted. How do we solve that problem? Express delivery in 60 minutes or less. It is the fastest non-food delivery service in the UK, and it's getting faster. So that 60-minute sort of initial piece, that time comes down over time as volume goes up. That cost comes down as volume goes up. And what's really interesting for us is it kind of, between Screwfix, Asda, Lush, who were part of the previous group, and other companies that we work with, the more we start to build that ecosystem, the more we have, couriers on the ground that can build their revenues through those enterprise customers, plus add SMEs, which is kind of like the backbone of where Gophr was built in London. Then you start to build a very, very diverse ecosystem of work, which keeps couriers on the ground 24/7 and not just kind of during high peak times, basically. And so, we're in over 275 at the moment, and that's going to increase to what?
Yeah, that'll be well over 300 in a few weeks, and we'll continue to grow as well. So a big part of what we do is make sure that we have big coverage. It's not just the key cities. 275 locations covers a lot of areas across all 4 UK countries as well.
Yeah, and then focus on high-frequency customers. Like that was the API integration directly into the Screwfix mobile app. But just to talk about how you can sort of build that over time, initially it was on the website. So the one thing that Screwfix has been really amazing at is really building in, understanding where they want it to be, working backwards from there, and then taking each step towards that. So starting with the website, testing various different triggers to understand where the demand could come from, doing direct mail outs, phoning people up, whatever it might be, testing what works, and then continuing to build on that once there's been some strong feedback.
Yeah, my favourite thing that they did with marketing was they would call up click and collect customers who hadn't collected yet and would say, would you like us to deliver it now? And it was like, yes, of course we would. No one ever wants anything slower. So that, as Seb said, they're really open to trying many things to see what triggers work.
Yeah.
And then the important bit here is, when we're talking about like working with different industry sectors and really being able to tailor to their needs, it's kind of understanding, okay, well, what is that delivery workflow that you want to be able to see? Like, if you're a jeweler's or whatever, you don't want a motorcycle guy coming in with a helmet on because that has, connotations of its own. So it's all really, really important to put kind of trigger points and breadcrumb that sort of workflow for the courier, give them training up front, make sure that they understand what is expected of them at every stage of the delivery process, and then gather that data to feed it back to the customer or the end consumer to understand, okay, how well is that courier executed against that expectation, and where can we continue to improve? So this is going more deeply into it, but it's a useful exercise to think about. Yeah, Graham, you're in this photo somewhere. It looks like you're
my
photoshopped.
sister said it's like Where's Wally?
Yeah.
Sat at the back, and you have to try and find me. But Yeah, again, a really partnership approach. They were kind enough to invite us to their reward, and I've never seen such excitement and happiness when they beat their rivals. So yeah, it was a good night, and I think good for them as well. Really good.
Yeah. This is a slightly different model. So when we go back to the models and we talked about express delivery and multi-drop delivery, so the stuff that we do for HelloFresh is very much on the multi-drop end. It's very, very different look and feel. So effectively, it's kind of, we do more of that sort of postal drops, like that multi-drop delivery work, large routes, big vans, but broadly, they started out with us because they really needed somebody that they could rely on, that felt like it was an extension of their own business, that felt like their own in-house fleet. And I'll talk about that in a minute, because we ended up replacing an in-house fleet that they had before. The other thing that they wanted to do, and the sell-in, was to reduce fail rates. So we were actually beating fail rates on their own in-house fleet. So currently, right now, we're traveling at about less than 0.03% in terms of fail rate where we deliver for HelloFresh. That's pretty much unheard of when it comes to the rest of their carriers. The other thing that we help do is, because we deliver more transparency and we kind of, we provide real-time comms throughout the delivery process, they saw a massive drop in their customer service inbound requests. This one's very much from, we pick up from warehouse, so effectively everything gets delivered into London. That all gets sorted, it gets put onto our courier fleet and then gets shipped out on that day. And the main thing really was being able to have those fail rates have a direct effect on subscription retention rates. So that's massively important for them, because to try and acquire that customer can be quite expensive, and losing that customer sometimes means that you lose them completely. So that's the main function that we serve for them. And it's kind of come full circle in a way, because before, how we built our relationship with HelloFresh was, it's sort of similar to the relationship we have with Net-a-Porter, which is, when they need additional drivers, we will provide them at short periods, within short notice, so they can cover work that's maybe, somebody's dropped out or there's overflow or whatever it might be. And they got to know and love our drivers, and then from there, they just decided, actually, we're just going to get rid of our in-house fleet. We'll hand it all over to you to take care of everything inside the M25. And but it wasn't branded anymore. But now we're starting to roll out branded vehicles across the board, and co-brand them, along the way. So this is just starting to hit the streets now, and it just feels like an extension of your own fleet, basically. Yeah.
It's got a good opportunity there to take some of your out-of-home advertising budget and use that to then subsidize in-house fleets. And that can be at cargo bikes, scooters, vans, as you see here. So actually, by being able to subsidize that, and you can then also use that as a method to transition some of your outsourced fleet into more sustainable electric vehicle options as well. Yeah. So it's a good method.
So hopefully that's kind of simple enough to get. And I mean, I hate to put it on you guys, but is there any retailer here who's kind of having some thoughts about this? I'm looking at you, and I don't know who else put their hand up earlier.
Looking nervous.
Or any questions? I've got my headphones on, so I don't know if... No? All right.
I'll turn it to Graham, and in terms of some of the takeaways, specifically, we haven't really touched so much on the grocery space.
Yep.
But how does same day in grocery differ to same day in power tools versus Prosecco, as we say? So, what are you seeing there, particularly on some of the doorstep experience elements? Obviously, some of the the urgency around vehicle types, delivery times, and how that differs?
Yeah, so grocery was an interesting one because of COVID. It had to get raised at some point. But as soon as COVID happened, all of the stores that sold food became fulfillment locations. They became delivery hubs, in essence. So grocery had a massive explosion. But what that did is created a habit, and it created almost a sense of, well, I'm not going to go back to ordering my shopping for 2 or 3 days. If I can get it today, then why not? So grocery had a massive shift, really through necessity. But a lot of the retailers that got involved with grocery, take Asda for an example, the problem they wanted to solve is we want to offer rapid delivery, or as they call it, express, but we want to offer every single item as being available. So the solution to that was, well, instead of using motorbikes, we will prefix the Asda account with a car, and essentially you just throw as much at us as you want. So their problem was solved, and now we're working with them. But yeah, we continue to see grocery grow, and what we're hearing now is other industries beginning to have an itch to scratch, beginning to have a few questions around what they might be able to do. So I see what happened in grocery happening in other areas.
And there's definitely been some challenges in store.
Yeah,
need to be ironed out.
Absolutely. So
not necessarily with Asda or
no, of course not.
Generally across grocery.
Couriers need to almost have a channel where they're treated as customers in a way. They need to be able to access the products that you've picked on time. So we would work with you guys to essentially understand how long you would take, how long do you need at store level to pick and pack, and we build that into the offering. So if, as a rule, it's 30 minutes, then we won't arrive until at least 30 minutes after your stores are picked and packed, so that they've got the time, they've got the resource to make that happen, and then we build in the delivery leg. So we want to do this together. But yeah, grocery has a challenge in a sense that it's obviously you have customers, you have deliveries coming in, you have deliveries coming out. So yeah, they have probably more challenges than many retailers would face because of the high churn of footfall. So if you don't have that problem, and if your footfall in store is slightly slower or lower, then it probably puts you in a good position. Because if they can do it, then so can others.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've got some sort of, we were wondering whether anybody was actually going to interact, so we kind of put a few up of our own in terms of conversations that we're having at the moment, and it's kind of, in terms of the case study piece, or thinking about the problem that you're trying to solve, if you can imagine a leading sportswear company that might have some flagship stores that has effectively sort of hot drops or wants to do a brand awareness piece, then ultimately the idea in terms of potentially solving that problem is, the customer problem you're solving is you want to be able to generate hype around a particular drop, which will be an event of sorts. So really thinking about how can you drive that real-time drop or that event directly to a delivery that's happening to that person later on that day, within hours, to really drive home that effect. What's going to get you internal buy-in? Discussions were just effectively, generating that brand awareness piece, number one. Where from and where to? Generally only flagship stores. And then how do you tap customer demand through these kind of live events? I mean, you've already got a captive audience. I'm a bit of a trainer fiend, sneaker fiend, whatever you want to call it. So I'm one of those people. But useful way to think about it.
And I think that what you're doing there is directly linking same-day delivery with loyalty.
Exactly.
Right. So for your VIP customers, for your subscription customers, how do you offer them something that's different in exchange for effectively having their data? But building that relationship and offering them something that average Joe Bloggs doesn't get.
I think the important thing here as well is still being able to have that relationship directly with the customer. So there are intermediaries that you can go through to do these kind of delivery solutions initially, particularly, and you don't necessarily have to do the investment because the investment's already been there. But I think once that volume starts to go up and you understand that there is some customer demand there, you can basically start to build on that and start to really join up that customer experience with the courier that's on the ground and continue to improve upon it to ensure that that courier that's representing you is as close to, the brand values that you want to demonstrate on the doorstep. Graham was talking about an hour ago on a case study or some work that we've done with Lush, and that was pretty key to the whole piece.
Yeah, and you have to put your couriers at the heart of it. We need to treat them as equal as customers. So making sure our couriers are well paid, well looked after. We give them a technology platform to really succeed and grow as a courier. We know it is a profession. So we give them a huge amount of support and love and care. And really that translates into a really great customer experience for you guys and for your customers at the doorstep and along the way. And I think our NPS score, Seb, speaks volumes to that. It's the customers that are telling us this is a really great experience. We really love what you've done. We really want to use it. And we see a huge amount of repeat business, which is really, really key. I'm sure you guys would want to measure how many customers come back for more, how many customers stop using other services and use this one. And we see a huge amount of that.
Yeah, so the average, so for existing sort of same day and next day carriers, you see and like net promoter scores sitting anywhere between, certainly in the UK, 0 and 32. And we've been tracking at about a 75, trailing 12-month average for, I think, close to 18 months now. Obviously, it takes a bit of a hit during peak or whatever, but broadly, that's class leading. And we think it's broadly because we spend a lot of time working with the couriers and helping them really understand the value of that customer relationship over the long term. So yeah, it's super important.
Just on a topic that we haven't necessarily touched on, but one which is sustainability.
Yeah.
And of course, it's incredibly important to customers today. And I think that one of the internal debates that you need to be having when you're talking about a same-day solution internally at a high level is understanding the level of expectation on behalf of the customer, but also how you're going to match that to the service that you're going to offer at the price point that you're offering. And I think that there's a lot to be said for same-day ship from store in terms of being able to provide a cargo bike, a motorbike, electric scooter solution from the store and demonstrate that the carbon footprint on that particular journey, as long as you've got the visibility of the stock in the store and that you can do that, then there's a lot of evidence to suggest that carbon footprint is a lot lower. But at the same time, when you're going for a very, very low price point, if you're going to go for the multi-drop solution that Seb was talking about right at the beginning, you've also got to take into consideration the total journey that's going to take place and quite how that is going to be feasible within the range. And a Mercedes e-Vito will do you, 94 miles. Can you reasonably do that within the route, or the e-Sprinter? And
yeah, the Vito goes further, but it doesn't take as much capacity. But the new Sprinter's coming out pretty soon.
So for me, from a sustainable piece, Patrick, as well, is to be truly sustainable. The average delivery distance from store to door is less than 2 miles. Now, if it makes more sense to deliver those 2 miles than to have something delivered from a warehouse 200 miles away with more packaging on more vehicles with more touch points to go to the same customer.
Yeah.
So at the very least, sustainability isn't just about the vehicle type, it's about the whole process of if the customer and the product are local, let's start to join them up. It goes into, there's a lot of ways to look at it.
Yeah, and you're tapping into the existing supply chain anyway.
Yeah.
A lot delivering from retail stores. So.
And you touched on packaging.
Yep.
Absolutely. If you are going to taking the HelloFresh example, the packaging there is designed specifically for a trunking, sortation, cross-docking and last mile solution. A ship from store solution, you'll be carrying the goods exactly in the same way that you would with a click and collect.
Yep.
Significantly less packaging required.
Off the shelf, absolutely.
Understanding how that packaging is going to influence the journey or vice versa.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's pretty key.
Unlike other sort of Central European countries, there's no real cold chain end-to-end next-day delivery solutions in the UK. So that needs to be taken into account. But it's, that's something that we are also looking into long-term. Yeah. Any questions on that? Yeah? No. We're just UK only for now. Yeah, we are planning. So just to give you an idea of sort of the evolution of the business. So we started out around about 2015 when a lot of the hot food kind of delivery players were starting. And our approach was kind of very different to those in that at the time, much like with rapid grocery delivery, it's like express delivery is the only game in town. And one of the concerns that we had, because we were working very, very closely with couriers and trying to think of a marketplace solution that works for couriers just as much as for customers. Couriers, their feedback was, listen, delivering something in 15 minutes doesn't really work for us because we'd rather sort of get as much going in one direction as possible and drive up our price per mile over time and not like express go one way and come back empty-handed. So the focus really for us was always build for the professional courier community and target the SME space. From there, we built in London for the SME space across 6 different vehicle types, and then we continued to evolve in that direction with the idea of really focusing on the professional courier community more so than anything else. And that is continuing at this point in time. So from the second half of this year, we'll start to see that evolve far more aggressively. So we want to nail that in the UK. And obviously, clearly, we've got a lot of enterprise customers on board now, doing lots of different types of work and providing different types of services, whether it's multi-drop, multiple pickup to drop, one pickup to multiple drops, express, what we call circuit work, which is picking up from one business to another, shift work, which is providing couriers for a certain amount of hours during the day. So all of that is available as a suite of products, and we can combine those to give different approaches. So again, flexibility is like top of mind, and it's flexibility for the courier and for the customer, and it's finding the right couriers for the right type of work, because different couriers want to do different things.
But
so
yeah,
really nailing that in the UK.
I can't wait till we get across Europe.
Yeah,
Which we will be, because I think this will really travel.
Target is next year. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice day.